Hello and welcome back to another Retro Restorations video, and this is part 2 in the Nintendo Game Boy 35-year restoration video. In part 1 I kind of showed you the Game Boy, showed you the case, and stripped it all down, cleaned it up, made a bit of an error on the lens and kind of recovered from there. And then at the end of the video I kind of said how I'd ordered some hydrogen peroxide in to do the retrobrighting process, and that's kind of where it left. Well, actually what happened was I used the old stuff I had because I thought, you know what, even if it works a little bit, the front is worse, so maybe I can get a bit of a head start on the front, and then when I get the new stuff it's going to need a little bit longer than the back anyway. And actually it turned out really well. So I'm just going to pop the lights on now. Here it comes in. Look at that. I was absolutely amazed that kind of maybe even like 6-month-old 12% hydrogen peroxide actually worked really well. So what I then thought was, well, I've already used this. This is like a little bit over 24 hours and basically matched the rear, and there was just a tiny little bit, so when the rear was attached, kind of on the rear around this portion here that was yellowed. So I figured, okay, what I'll do is I'll use the remainder just to take the edge off. So I thought I'd now take the opportunity to show you how I've done the retrobrighting process. So in essence, all you're doing is using good strong hydrogen peroxide, around 12%. I recommend you wear gloves, and lots of people do them in different ways. Some people will just kind of fill up a plastic container with the hydrogen peroxide and they'll weigh it down. What I like to do, because I find it more efficient, is I get a bag and I put the item in the bag with the hydrogen peroxide, and then I just use the container to hold it. So on this one, all I wanted to do was just lighten the sides ever so slight. So this way here you can see by pushing it down it kind of stays in place, and it then sits around the item rather than being wasted all around here. I then just put some foil around the outside to help reflect and keep the light inside, keeping a gap open on the top of the bag to let out the gases that are produced. And then I've got 2 UV lights here, which I then set up on the other one just like this, and left them for 24 hours. You can put them in bright sunshine, but here in England the likelihood of it being super sunny all the time is not great, and so UV light for me is the way ahead. During the process what you'll find is, as the hydrogen peroxide is going through a chemical reaction, you'll see some light bubbling just appear over the surface. It isn't a bad thing. So that's how you go through the process. And what I'm going to do now is I'm now going to rebuild the Game Boy, and I'm going to film all of that, and then subsequently I've got like a litre of the stuff coming. I will then have a go at doing the carry-all. That's this one, if you remember. So I'd cleaned it off, but there was this yellowing here on the ends in comparison to here. So this is going to be an instance where I will kind of put it flat. I'll need a container that's probably about this big and just kind of fill it up to there. So with that said, I'm just going to remove this, wash it down, and get set up with all the parts, and I'll go into the rebuild. Okay, so here we are back at the bench, and how does the song go? What a difference a day makes. Look at that now, absolutely brilliant. There's literally the mildest little signs just here on the very edge and here on the very edge, but if I was to do this anymore to get those sections, this bit would then start to likely get even lighter, and right now they're a real nice colour match. So I think the fact that you've got that tiny little bit there doesn't bother me when the whole kind of finish now looks authentic. Some people go a little bit too far and then they start to look fake, even kind of like they're newly produced. So that's turned out really well. I've got my parts over here to one side, and so what I'm going to start doing now is probably rebuilding the back first, then I'll build in here, and then I'll finally put the screen on at the end, just that way we can air can and get rid of any final bits of dust. That's the rear put back together. Now we'll move on to the front. Right, that's all attached, and then what I've used is some really thin, like extra thin, double-sided tape, and I've applied it on here instead of the surround because I think that's better. Because if you put it on the surround, often you'll find that when you put it on, it's going to overlap where you see things. So this is going to go on now. I'm going to peel all that off. So that's everything all back together. Time to pop in some batteries, and fingers crossed everything works. Let's go for Tetris again, shall we? Okay, here we go. Brilliant. So, go on. All the buttons seem fine. Can you see okay? So that's all good. What we said was we needed to check the headphone jack, didn't we? So we might as well try it, I guess, with some of the other games. Kid Dracula. And we're getting that little, fingers crossed, that little bit of gameplay as well, aren't we? And you can see the select button is working fine. It actually does something on this game. So let's try. There you go. So we're getting stereo sound out of the headphones. Balloon Kid. I've never played this game before. It looks like you hold down the button and you go flying around. Okay, it's right. Okay, if you push that button, you let go of your balloons. I don't think that's the idea. So it's basically like an Echo the Dolphin knockoff, isn't it? What I think is a Japanese Super Mario Land 2. Gremlins 2. Oh, it's like like a Mario knockoff, isn't it? Oh. And the last one was that Buster Move 4. Fingers crossed that it works after that thorough clean. Magic Blow should help. It's a good sign. I've literally no idea what you do in this game. So obviously you have to shoot at something. I'm not sure what though. Do you shoot the black ones? Oh, maybe you do. I don't know. So I think that was just a very small amount of gameplay, and I think that's a good opportunity for us to have a tiny review of this. Handheld, 35 years old. It's easy to see why it was such a hit. The proportions are really nice. It's not too large, it's not too small. You know, that could fit in the back pocket of your jeans. You're not cramped. The buttons are still, you know, the feedback is nice. You know, the only 4 AA's. It lasts for a while, and a good copy and a good back catalogue. And anyone who watches my older content knows I was a massive Game Gear fan. I had a Game Gear growing up. I had a Game Boy later on, one of the yellow ones. It came with Donkey Kong, but I digress. But I thought the Game Gear was miles ahead. I loved that it had a colour screen. I loved all the accessories that came with it. I loved playing Sonic on it. But ultimately this one won out because of the battery life, the size, and there weren't as many games for the Game Gear, which is a shame. But we're here to talk about this, and yeah, it's undeniable that it was a superb handset. Playing it today, it's obvious its weakness is still its screen, you know, not having a backlight, and all you're able to do is just set the contrast. So obviously if you're in a dark environment, it's super hard to see. If you're in a bright environment here, like we are with these kind of lights for filming, it then is hard as well. So that is still really its letdown, this kind of washed out, non-bit backlit screen. But if you're a fan of kind of playing it how you remember, it's still just about usable. But you know, if you haven't played one for a while and you pick it up in comparison to playing with your mobile phone, you're going to notice the difference. I know there are modifications out there that you can go and get, but this is, you know, kind of how it was originally intended. And this shameless plug will be available as with all these games and the other stuff on my eBay store. So if you want to check it out and buy this one or any of my other retro stuff, feel free to check the link that's at the end of the video. But yeah, in summary, we did a complete tear down of this in part 1. Took it all apart, cleaned everything up, sorted the buttons out, and we also like cleaned all the cartridges up, and we found this was absolutely horrible, so it's great to see. And then in this part 2, I took you through how I do the retrobrighting process, showed you how this was all nice and restored, rebuilt it all, the screen's back on. I think we got away with that little thing there, you know, as you start to play as well, you completely forget all about that, just a couple of minor marks on there, but rebuilt all of that. And I may or may not do another video with the case, because we've kind of done all of this and you get the idea. If you did enjoy the video or learnt anything from it, please give me a like or a subscribe. I'm only a small channel, so it really does mean a lot to me and it really does help me out. But until the next one, all the best, take care and see ya.